Our policy is that we believe that the situation should be resolved with a democratic and Jewish state of Israel living side by side in peace and security with a sovereign and contiguous Palestinian state.
Presidential Press Secretary Josh Earnest yesterday reiterating support of a two-state solution in Israel. Of course, right now, Israeli elections are underway. Polls show a very, very close race. As we mentioned earlier, the real action may come after the voting as different parties tried to build the coalition. The story continues to build, and we continue to talk about the elections. As you see, a scene from an Israeli polling place. This was just moments ago as people are still coming in, given the time difference, as afternoon moves into evening there in the Holy Land. Staying with me, my old colleague, Michael Patrick Flanagan, who joins us from Newsmax Washington, also joining us on the ground in Israel, one who knows what it's like to run for public office in that nation. He is the former mayor of the city of Shiloh, the author of the new book, Sparks from Zion. That, of course, would be our good friend David Rubin. And we are also joined here, he's nice enough to stay with us, former Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, who is in Miami, Skyping in. David, since you've actually run for office in Israel as the former mayor of Shiloh, give us your snapshot of what is happening today and what is likely to happen in your mind.
Well, Israel, I must remind your viewers that Israel is a parliamentary democracy. So when people go to the polls, they don't vote for a candidate, they are voting for a party. And the election will be very close. They're calling it neck and neck. They're actually saying that the Zionist Union, which is the main left-wing party in Israel, is going to etch out a victory. But that doesn't guarantee what the coalition is going to be. What happens is after the election, all of the heads of the parties are invited to the president's house. The president is like a ceremonial post in Israel, but he determines by his discussions with the heads of the parties which of the parties is going to have its leader form the coalition. So I predict that we're going to see the Zionist Union, the main left-wing party, getting more votes than Prime Minister Netanyahu's Likud, but I think that the Likud has a much better chance of actually forming the governing coalition.
David, good morning or good evening in Israel. Tell me, the character of the election on the ground there, is it the same as it ordinarily is, or are you seeing a lot of hard work and activism by people who are out trying to beat out the vote and do it in a really hands-on sort of style?
Well, the election has been particularly intense. The two main parties, the Likud to the right of center and the Zionist Union to the left of center, have been trying to get votes from the main parties just to the right of them and just to the left of them. And the political activity has been particularly intense. Yes, it has.
And mindful of that intense political activity, David, let me turn to Alan Dershowitz. Alan, before the break, we talked about Prime Minister Netanyahu saying to the right wing that he would not be in favor any longer of the formation of a Palestinian state. It's worth noting that the Zionist Union and Tzipi Livni announced late yesterday that she would give up rotation of the premiership with Isaac Herzog, the slate's leader. And it's interesting that both major factions, if you will, are doing this kind of last-minute change. Alan, your take on what's going on with the Zionist Union?
Well, first of all, let's put everything in context. You know, this is the only country in the entire Middle East where you can have a real election. There were elections in Egypt, but who knows how real they were in Turkey. Certainly in Jordan, you have a monarchy. In Saudi Arabia, there's not even a pretense. And, of course, Syria and Iraq and Iran are not in any way democracy. So it's very nice to see a really thriving democracy in a part of the world that has never really had democracies, and that's one of the reasons why all Americans should always be supportive of Israeli democracy. Israel is America's only reliable ally in the Middle East. Look, I've known Herzog for many years. I've known Netanyahu for many years. They are both very, very smart people. They both are capable of governing. They represent different perspectives, and I think that the public is being given a real a choice here. Now, whether they will still have that choice once the maneuvering begins, and once we see people on the left coalescing with people on the right, and people on the right getting together with the religious parties, it will remain to be seen. But right now, we're seeing a thriving democracy at work, and everybody ought to applaud that, whichever way the election comes out.
Alan, we have lamented that the relationship between President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu is not what anyone would like it to be. Once the election is passed, and let's assume for just a minute that Prime Minister Netanyahu regains leadership of the country, do you expect that those relations will warm a little now that the election is passed, and maybe they'll be able to work together better than before?
I hope so. I think the White House clearly has an interest in seeing Netanyahu lose. But if he wins the election, and it looks like he is going to serve for the remaining 2 years of the Obama administration, I think they have no choice but to try to improve relations on both sides. The relationship between the two countries, militarily, intelligence-wise, security-wise, is too close and too mutually dependent to have individual differences serve as a barrier. So I would hope that whoever wins the election will see a closer relationship between Israel and the United States over the next 2 years.
1 minute remains. David Rubin, very quickly, since you are on the ground in Israel, I think we have your audio if we can't reestablish the Skype picture. Give us your dead level best prediction. 40 seconds left. What's going to happen today?
Well, I'm predicting that the Zionist Union will get more votes than the Likud, and then the president of Israel is going to give the head of the Zionist Union, Isaac Herzog, the task of forming the government. After 21 days, I don't think he's going to succeed, and then Netanyahu of the Likud will be given that task.
Wow, and we thought Florida in 2000 was something. David Rubin and Alan Dershowitz, our thanks to you. Michael Patrick Flanagan, stay right where you are. And when we come back, we'll be joined by General Michael Hayden. There's more following this update.